the Second World War and the first rays of hope for equality. Right after the United States entered the Second World War and their need for more soldiers escalated. First movements for equality between whites and blacks started in America. Big contribution of blacks in defending freedom and their protest against fascism made great changes in their social status in the United States. First step to promote their social status started by merging black military units into white ones. In the first half of the 19th century, economic injustice between Northern and Southern America divided the nation into two different hostile groups. Because of their geographic position, Northern states weren't able to build large farms as their Southern counterparts. Southern states had this opportunity to gain wealth through millions of acres of agricultural land. In those lands, thousands of black slaves were forced to work and grow tobacco and cotton in the worst humanitarian conditions. But because northern states were more industrialized and didn't need human forces that much, the blacks were treated like dirt in those areas. Fast development of Western civilization in the early 19th century proved that industrial societies were superior to agricultural ones. This economic disparity between southern and northern states ignited a bloody war that lasted 4 years. In this dispute, slavery was in fact only a small part of a bigger problem, which was how to utilize black people. For the northern states merchants, making part-time use of the black people in exchange for low wages was more beneficial than having house slaves. However, southern states were in dire need of slaves working full-time. Since those years till now, with the help of propaganda and human rights claims, the United States symbolizes that bloody war as a movement in favor of freedom for African American people. After 4 years of bloody war, under pressure of northern states, the federal government added the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution. Based on the first section of this amendment, slavery and involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party had been duly convicted, got banned in the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. 3 years later, this amendment was completed by passing another amendment which gave citizenship to all American citizens regardless of their race and skin tone. In 1954, the United States Supreme Court ruled segregation in public schools as unconstitutional. This rule stopped a historical discrimination against African American people. After that, African Americans could be educated in the same class as the white people, just like black soldiers were beside white soldiers in World War II. Still, African Americans were facing many problems and black students could not sit on a white student's chair. Since those days till now, several amendments have passed through American congressmen's table, but all of those efforts only cultivated racism and hatred in the heart of white people towards African Americans in the southern states.
Constitutional amendments during and after the Civil War were supposed to free African American slaves. It did something for about 10 years. Then there was a North-South Compact, which essentially granted the former slave-owning states the right to do whatever they wanted. And what they did was criminalize black life in all kinds of ways. That created a kind of a slave force. In fact, one of the most interesting books on it, Douglas Blackman's, is called Worse Than Slavery or something like that. It threw mostly black males, but also women, into jail, where they become a perfect labor force.
Rosa Parks. The incidents in the city of Montgomery, Alabama in 1955 brought in a new spirit to the black movements. Rosa Parks, a black woman, refused to surrender her seat to a white passenger on a public bus, and according to the law, she was arrested. Rosa Parks' arrest sparked anger among blacks nationwide. A young minister, Martin Luther King, conducted a 13-month public bus boycott in Alabama.
I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
These protests gradually converted to a civil rights movement. In 1960, by the efforts of Martin Luther King, Civil Rights Act aimed at eliminating racist apartheid was adopted. Since then, fundamental changes were made in laws regarding racism under Democrats in 1960s. Then blacks gained such power, status, and unity that governors could not continue their racism against them. When racism began to fade, at least on the surface, American citizens could feel a deeper discrimination which was rooted in their racial beliefs. Today, Americans know that the Jews control a great portion of wealth in their country, estimates range all the way up to 80%. About 2% of Americans identify themselves as Jewish, but in Senate, the proportion of Jewish members is about 30%.
Thank you, AIPAC. Thank you, America.
Right-wing Christians' support for the Jews makes them even more powerful. Today, we can say that the Jews run the United States. Each 4 years, we can see that the United States President, whether Democrat or Republican, must attend the AIPAC and bow before the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem. This is what each and every United States President must do after taking office. Discrimination has taken a new form in today's America. Today, American people are divided into Jews and non-Jews. The non-Jews are ranked by the degree of their devotion to Israel. Then, freedom seekers gradually shifted their attention towards discriminations conducted by the Jews in the United States. These days, we can see that once again discrimination against blacks is highlighted by the media, but it seems this stream, more than being related to social and cultural issues, tries to distract people from the larger discrimination we are facing in our everyday life.